Cool. All right. So welcome back to another edition of the Teacher Nerds Podcast. I'm Ron Nober.
I'm Joe DiPaolo.
I'm a technology teacher, 3rd grade to 8th grade.
And I teach 3rd grade.
And we are excited to have Dr. Nathan Lang-Raad today from We Video. So Nathan, welcome.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be on.
Yeah. So before we get into our 2 yes mores, 1 no way, usually we just kind of ask you to just tell the audience a little bit about yourself and maybe your background and how you kind of came about with We Video.
Yeah, it sounds good. Well, I am a teacher nerd like yourself. I like to refer myself also to a nerd or maybe like a science geek. I started off, actually I wanted to be a weatherman as a college student, and the college I was attending didn't have meteorology as a degree. So I chose like a chemistry education because I didn't expect to actually use it, but I loved science. And then, of course, going through the program, I ended up really liking teaching. And so I became a high school science teacher and had an opportunity after being in the high school classroom to actually work at NASA, which is a really
awesome.
like humbling
Cool.
and honoring experience. Yeah, it was pretty cool. And get to work with astronauts and engineers. And really when STEM started to come on the scene, that's where NASA was starting to develop STEM lessons to have those delivered to students across the nation and the world. And so I was doing video conferencing with students in like 3rd grade, solar system. It was a lot of fun. And then I really had a passion for getting back into K-12 public education. So I was an elementary administrator at a STEM school, and then I was a high school administrator, and then I had the opportunity to be a district curriculum director, and I did that. And I did that in Nashville, Tennessee, and it was when the first to the top state, Tennessee was a first to the top state like Delaware, and so we had to change our assessments, our teacher evaluation, our standards had to change. Everything changed, and so my very first year as director of elementary curriculum and instruction for Nashville was to ensure that we adopted a brand new curriculum and standards and teacher evaluation and a new assessment all in like 1 year. So it was probably the most change I had ever experienced as an educator, and we were all in it together. And then after that, I really wanted to make a broader impact with my role. So I kind of jumped into writing and consulting and really got into ed tech. And now I'm at We Video, and I love what I do at We Video. I think that inspiring students to be their most creative selves is one of the most important things that we can be doing as educators, no matter if I am an English teacher or a math teacher. It's really teaching students how to tap into their inner creativity and encouraging and empowering them to be truly self-directed. So that's what I do at We Video. I support educators in helping transform their classrooms. And we think that We Video is a platform that can help students be their most creative selves.
Awesome. That was a heck of an
definitely
introduction.
agree.
What's that?
I said, that was heck of an introduction.
Well, sorry.
No, it was great. It was awesome.
Yeah.
Well, once I start talking, I can't be quiet. So
it was.
Maybe it's a good thing that you blocked
blew
up.
me away. Like I expected, hearing that, I'm like, well, he's got to be like 150 years old then,
Right. Like what was the span of time that
I have really good skin cream.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that was probably, like 15 years that happened. So yeah, it was one of those things where opportunities would be presented to me, and I would always think, I don't know, I feel like I just got into this. Is it time for me to jump into a new adventure? And I just said yes, on those times. And sometimes there are adventures that are presented in front of me, and I say, not right now. Like I'm still working through this particular path, or really want to see this to fruition. So about 15 years for all that.
That's cool. That's really cool.
All right, so we'll jump into our 2 yes more, no one, no way, and then kind of get right into We Video. So our topic today is outdoor and nature activities.
Oh, yeah.
And I believe, Nathan, you live in Maine. Is that?
Yes, beautiful state of Maine.
Yeah, that's
Yes.
what I
Oh,
thought. So you're all about outdoors and nature, I'm sure.
You have to be. Of course, you can only go outside for like 3 months here because it's so cold. There's snow on the ground. I think it's like today, like 45 degrees. So, things are starting to finally warm up enough. Things we're thawing out a bit. So, by the time June rolls around, I'll be able to go outside a little bit more.
All right. So usually it seems that most guests want one of us to go first. Is that, do you want us to do that?
Yeah, just sure.
All right. Joe, you wanna jump in first?
sure, Ron. This is kind of a no-brainer for me. When we're
Yeah, I
talking
thought so.
outdoors, there's really not much that I won't do. And up until about probably a half an hour ago, I didn't have one for my no way. But my two yeses are going to be surfing and snowboarding. It's something, if I could snowboard all year round, I would. I love snowboarding, and since my son's been getting into it, it's become even more of a passion since we can now all go up as a family. Surfing is something I've always loved and do year round, even when it gets cold. And Nathan, it gets cold in Jersey, but I know that the ocean and up north gets a lot colder, where it's like high 40s in May and June, which is extremely cold. Which it gets cold around here, but we do try and surf all year round. So then my one no way would have to be deep sea fishing. Like I started to think about it, and even in the bay when you can't see the land, to me that's not cool. And I and I love the water, and I was a water kid growing up, and I'm a water kid now, or not a water kid, but like I love being on the water. And whether it's swimming or body surfing, or we just got a new surfboard the other day, and I'm all about the ocean when I can see the land.
Yeah.
So like those would be my two yes more and one no ways. Nathan, you want to jump in and we can hear yours?
Yeah, I feel like I should. I could steal a couple of yours, but I won't because I want
Oh,
to. And like I actually thought about this, but no, I would say that the deep sea fishing. I had been on a deep sea excursion. It was about 10 years ago, and it was a terrible experience for me. I was sick as a dog the whole time. Like I about 2 minutes into it, I got sick, and then when you get sick on a deep sea fishing
Nothing
excursion,
worse.
yeah, when there's no way you come out of it. Like you pretty much set to be sick the whole time. So I remember whenever I got off the boat, like literally kissing land. Like I was so happy. Like, oh. So but that's not the one I had. But whenever you shared that, I was like, yeah, I can say that's definitely a no way for me as well. So definitely the yeses. I had not snowboarded or surfed at all, so I'm more of land based. I love to just like garden and be outside.
Cool.
Also, my no way is also gardening because so I like the process of I like to like make the excuse of like manual labor. I don't have to go work out in the gym. I can just go and like rake something. And so I like that process, but I don't love the tedious process of like picking weeds out of the garden. So like last year was the first time we had a garden. And I was all excited. I got the compost and I made the rows and planted and transplanted. But I let the weeds get out of control. And I kept thinking, oh, I'll get out there eventually. I never did. And the weeds just looked terrible. So, yeah, this is.
it's a lot of work. Gardening is
Yeah.
a lot of work.
Yeah, you have to be totally committed.
Yep.
And again, our tomatoes were fantastic. So that was like the one crop that was like amazing. Like we're still like feasting on tomatoes from last year. So yeah, I mean they were hearty things, and so we made like pizza sauce out of them and like fried.
Yeah.
I'm from the South, so fried green tomatoes.
Nice.
Yeah. So any like yard work, and so if I had to pick, two things, the second one would just be like like raking or like planting, just anything out in the yard where I can get out and get some like, vitamin D and fresh air. And again, like I have in Maine, I have like a very short window of doing that, but
Right.
it's super nice when in the summer hits and everyone else is baking and we're like in the 60s and 70s.
For
Sweet.
sure.
Yeah.
So I
Ron,
guess
your turn.
yeah, my two. One would be just enjoying, like we live out in the country, so birds, like just enjoying the birds. And I think, Joe, we had talked about this a few episodes before. We just had a pleated woodpecker by our house, which is like the large scale woody woodpecker, about a foot tall, and just having him banging on the tree. And we get hummingbirds, and Joe knows this. Joe took care of our hummingbirds last year while we were on vacation, but there are times where we have upwards of 40 hummingbirds on our property. So keeping the feeders full is a full-time job.
And I will say, it wasn't me. It was my son at the
Your
time.
son,
he
right.
was he was 13. He'll be 14.
Yep.
He'll be 14 in 2 weeks. So he was 13 because it was last August, I think, last summer.
Yep.
And I mean, there's a lot of feeders. There's a lot of little bird. Are they bird baths or I guess bird
hummingbird feeders? Yeah.
Hummingbird feeders. Yeah. There's definitely. I can imagine what it might sound like there on a good day when they're all humming.
Yep. And
I think I can hear them now. Actually, I keep hearing birds in the background, so I didn't know if that was at Ron or Joe's house. So
it might be at Joe's. Is your garage open?
I am in the garage. It's this has been such a hard time trying to find between my son working and on his schoolwork remotely, my girlfriend's home working remotely. We're all over the place and like trying to find a good spot for the internet and to get, powerful signals. It's been I think that's been the biggest struggle this whole remote learning thing is, not how can I say this nicely? Getting along, I guess, with all the people I love at home,
right.
while trying to find a place where I can still get work done.
Very well spoken.
Yeah.
Very wise choice of words.
Well, what's funny is both Stacy and Dylan will at one point in time hear this. And,
right.
Whether it's me editing on WeVideo or them listening to it. And that's how my son found out that where we surf actually does have sharks. Because he was listening.
Yeah, that's right. I said
that. He was listening to one of our first episodes, Nathan, and Ron and I were talking about books, and Jaws was written on a book that was written based off stories that happened right in our backyard. And I had said something, and he was on the couch listening to it, and I heard him go, "Wait a minute, what did you just say on it?" I'm like, "Oh man!" But you know what? It took 13 years for him to realize it don't matter where you go in the ocean, there's going to be sharks there.
Right. That's true.
I've learned from there on out, you really got to watch what you say, especially when people are recording it.
Yeah, no kidding. So my second...
Are the birds a problem? I'm sorry. Because
No.
the garage.
We love it. No, sorry to hijack your part there, Ryan.
Yeah, I'm sorry, Ron.
No, you're good.
The birds.
So my second would be taking care of, we have ducks and chickens. Being out there, taking care of the ducks and chickens, going down, collecting eggs. That's a lot of fun. My no way would have to be like rock climbing or something like that, where I'm going to fall to my death. Is not an enjoyable outdoor activity for me. I'm not that adventurous guy. So they would be my no way there.
Yeah. I feel you with those heights.
Yeah. Yeah. Like the skydiving, rock climbing, all that kind of stuff is not for me. All right. So, I guess we'll jump in. So Nathan, what is your title at WeVideo?
A Chief Education Officer.
Okay. And I know you have a book that you've written, WeVideo Every Day, which I have a copy of and have used. I actually used it this year to create a podcasting class. Cool. For my fifth graders. I used one of the templates in there to really help out.
And the book was written before we had our audio only export feature come out. So it's easier now. At the time I was writing it, we obviously you could just you could still get the audio only, but there's a few extra clicks, and now it's at the very end when you press export.
Yeah, it's so easy.
Yeah, it really is.
Well, and that I think is one of the greatest things about WeVideo is when we first started podcasting, Ron, right? We used WeVideo to upload everything, right?
Yeah.
Into YouTube, which we stole from Joe Rogan and the Joe Rogan Experience with his podcast show. I had said to Ron, I'm like, yo, why don't we throw it up on YouTube as well? And we had just gotten into, WeVideo and everything. So it just worked out. And so that was probably over a year ago. And over that year, just the I don't want to say improvements, but I guess add-ons or yeah, I guess
Well, it's
improvements.
constant. I mean, you're constantly improving stuff on the platform.
Yeah, I
Mm.
mean, this. I mean, we feel like any solid, dynamic platform for education. I mean, we're all the time listening to educators. We're listening to like, what is it that you need to better support instruction? And so we hear things like, we want to do podcasting, so that's why I made that switch. We have just a little sneak peek at something to come. We have a new GIF creator coming out. So
Wow.
and
Oh, cool.
yeah, so hopefully engineering doesn't get upset that I said it before not. But at the very end is you have video, audio only, and then GIF. And so GIF obviously allows you to, you can embed it into Google Slides, or you can put it
Wow.
out on social. So, I mean, we're always listening to what teachers say we need and responding. So, yeah, we're constantly updating and making the experience. And then in the summer, we have another like really, really cool like refresh and update where it's easier to assign projects to kids in WeVideo. So like we push out and say, hey, create this video, and it lands into a student's dashboard. So
Awesome.
yeah, some really exciting things coming down the road as well.
And I got to say, Jake Miller would be very happy to hear you say GIF instead of GIF.
I refuse to say Jeff. Yeah, and Jake's is a friend of mine, so yeah, I can't. I have to go with the hard G sound.
So, I think WeVideo has really, especially at our district, and I'm sure all over with what we're going through with distance learning, has really kind of become a major platform that people are using. And I also have to say, thank you guys for making it available to everybody now. That was amazing. Because I just saw now New York State has shut down schools for the rest of the year. I imagine New Jersey's not going to be far behind. But the ability to do it and to do it easily is amazing.
Thank you. And if I could just say, I mean, we want to do all we can to support educators. We know it's that people are having a really tough time with this right now, that they miss their students. They might be in really like impossible situations. So we're very aware and understanding it, that people have these different situations that they're living in different contexts. But we also know that there are opportunities to still engage students in learning. And it looks very different, and we should never try. I don't think we should be replicating the brick and mortar classroom experience. No. I think we need to kind of redefine learning in this new context. And that's what we want to be. We want to be a place where teachers can create videos, and then students can respond, and being able to take the opportunities around them. And that's where we're really focused on this kind of relaxed learning or opportunity learning, where students are noticing things around them and being able to capture that, and then sprinkle in their creativity to make it really exciting and cool. Like Joe was talking earlier about how it's so addictive. You can get on the platform and plan it for hours. I'm the same way too, and I'm creating videos, especially when I get into the stock media, because there's so many choices for the stock media. I'm like, oh, do I want a humming? Ronnie mentioned hummingbirds. I just put together a video where I found a hummingbird, and it's like a slow motion video. I'm like, this is perfect stock, media, because I don't have the ability like you do, Ron, to go and like capture with my expensive camera a hummingbird. So it's really amazing seeing what students are doing right now in remote learning, and being able to be so creative during this time.
That's, I mean, it's cool. The opportunities it affords students for that creativity in a platform that makes it easy for them to create a professional looking product at the end, and then to be able to share it out. It's so easy to share it out and share it out to the rest of the world. I mean, Joe has third graders, and they're making amazing PSAs and videos.
Commercials for the stuff they're building off concepts that we talked about in science, and that's. We talked about the other day with Katie Martin. You talk about real world experience, where you can never, very rarely in a class of 20 kids, get one, all 20 kids excited about taking a test. Out of 20 students, maybe you might have that one kid that really is a test taker, but all of them have watched a YouTube video. So now all of a sudden that just the engagement to now, like, maybe I should pay attention because of how I'm going to get to show what I've learned. And like Ron said, the question was always there. Well, can third graders do it? Well, you don't know if you don't let them try, and I teach third grade, which then leads us to believe, well, can second graders do it? And when we were talking the other day, Ron always mentions there's the two, the storyboard, right, and the timeline.
Yeah.
So there are, options where can they do it? Well, if you give them the opportunity to do it, I'm sure some of them can, and some of them might need a little more help, but that's a beautiful thing about WeVideo, because you can give them the screencast, and once you show them how to watch a video and watch, stop, and do, those kids can't walk or even talk in full sentences yet, but they can all grab a phone and start to manipulate things. So they're learning early on. And that's another thing I thought was great, was WeVideo now has the app you can put on your phone.
Yep.
And I teach third grade, and majority of them do have phones or access to tablets. So then it just makes it even easier.
Yes. Yeah, no, it's interesting you talk about even our young learners being able to sequence a video, and the amount of like spatial and cognitive thinking that's involved in creating a video, because you have to think about whenever you're layering. I mean, even today, I still have to be very aware of like, okay, whenever you're creating a layer, a video layer upon layer upon layer, I have to decide where does this layer go? If I'm doing a text layer between a background and a motion title, and then like a video of me saying something, and so there's a lot of critical thinking involved of deciding where do I want this additional layer to go. But then the great thing is you can't break it. You can
Right.
you keep iterating and keep moving things around until you get it to like, I'm constantly pressing the preview play button. Like, okay, let me see what this looks like. Oh yeah. Or let me try this transition instead. Or like, oh, I accidentally flipped that. I want this to be behind this. So I need to drag this down to this track. So I love seeing even our young learners being able to make these like really amazing videos.
When I think like you were, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, Ron.
I was just saying.
It's you.
I was just, when you were saying that, like it even affords them the ability to be able to be okay with making a mistake, because I can just go right in and fix it. I can preview it, see that was a mistake, and realize it's no big deal. I made a mistake. That's how I'm going to learn. Now I know next time how to do it. It opens that up for them, which is huge. We've talked before about, Joe and I, about kids making mistakes and having that fear of being, failing or having done something wrong. And it takes a little bit of that away. It's almost like working with a safety net.
Yeah, absolutely. You're exactly right.
What were you going to say, Joe?
Well, I was just going to say, like, whether or not they can do it or not, but, to give them the opportunity and to give them the checklist, so to give them, to show them how to do it and to walk them through a couple times. And then maybe you don't throw them right into their first project where they're trying to explain what they learned in science. Their first project could be, in the beginning of the year, hey, we need you to make that video to introduce yourself to the class. And it should tell us your name. It should tell us what, and then you have that quote unquote 1-point rubric. Do they tell us your name? Yep. Do they tell us what you like? Yep. Does it, is it under a minute? Because I feel like that's been huge, putting that in the rubric to have them really say, all right, I got 60 seconds. So I now, as a third grader, can't say, like it's here we go. A, B, and C, this is what I want to say. And then all of a sudden you start to see these little kids going, well, can I write a script? And my response is, yes, you can write a script, and let's try and figure out where we can put the script. So you talk about, like just the critical thinking skills. And I guess, would that be linear thinking? Like, if I do this, then this will happen. Or if I do this, then it'll look like this, so there is so much going on. So at the end of the day, did they learn that science concept? Maybe not. But did they learn, how to think about, how they're presenting themselves to others, how to have one thing transition to another. Did they learn something? Yes. So what's the point of school? Passing tests or learning? And I think when you start to look at things that way, do I care about if they know something specific in science, like a definition, when they have every definition on their phone, where they could just say, hey, no, but do I care that, what they're learning is being creative and presenting what they know is in an interesting fashion, where it's going to take someone and say, hey, let me see what this guy has to say, to me, that's real world. And that's 21st century. And I know Ron and I talk about we don't want to say the same thing over and over again in every podcast. But at the end of the day, you want kids to be 21st century learners. Video allows that to happen.
Yeah, absolutely. It's interesting you talk about I feel lots of goodness in what you just talked about. A few things, assessment, so like rubrics. I love it when we can change assessments in a way that makes students think they're just having fun, but we're also assessing learning at the same time. So, we've been hearing about assessment of learning and assessment for learning for a long time now. And I love the fact that with WeVideo, it can be assessment for learning, because we are essentially getting a window into what a student's thinking about based on how they are sequencing a video. And you mentioned vocabulary, and one really kind of neat interactive way of doing word walls or introducing vocabulary for a lesson is having students create a video of a word. And so maybe you give some parameters or some constraints, like you have to give me, show me 5 different visuals for this new vocabulary words, like it's metamorphosis. And so you have to find 5 videos or 5 stills that represent, or you can find motions as well. But I mean, to me, that's so much more engaging than putting metamorphosis on the wall and then like with the definition behind it. Like you said, what does that do? And any student can go Google it and regurgitate a definition, but to truly own it, to apply it. And then in remote learning now, like seeing these vocabulary words actually with your eyes and being able to make application immediately. And that's the opportunity that we have right now.
Yeah. And I think, one of the things you mentioned there, if I copy the definition for metamorphosis off the wall, off the board or out of the textbook, am I getting it? Or when I have to go search and see, does this constitute metamorphosis,
right,
and add it into my video, I have to know what metamorphosis means in order to decide if that's going to work in my video or not. And that's huge. That's actually, owning the definition of metamorphosis.
When we were talking with Katie Martin the other day, and she was saying after all this to revamp and relook at the way people are going to be assessed, or students are going to be assessed, that's the first thing I thought of was like, man, there should be the video component, as opposed to just, think creatively and work collaboratively all during the school year, and then you're tested this way. So as things are moving forward, hopefully there is, that video component that they do get to showcase. Because like Ron was saying, the things that these kids are doing are blowing us away. And to be able to do it at 8 years old, if it was fostered every year, from second grade, and then up through what Ron's doing with the kids are amazing. And sometimes that's the first time when they're really getting into it. And I think the 5th grade podcasting thing is awesome, because it's kids, I guess it was in 8th grade, right, Ron, when Dean asked his mom for a mic for Christmas because he decided
they did a sports podcast.
Oh, that's so cool.
And he's a huge Eagles fan, a huge, Sixers fan, loves sports. And to have that happen, at that age, who knows where, and I'm sure he would, the kid's going to be successful regardless, but to have that passion kick in early, to me, that's why you teach, to not just to give them facts, but just to show them how cool learning could be if you're learning the right stuff, not just not just looking for the right answers.
Well, and then absolutely, and then when you're referring to remote learning and you're asking students to, like respond to a post or type something back, you don't really get an insight into their thinking, their well-being, the emotion behind it, and that's why I love, like with video creation, you can actually see, you can hear, you can see the choices they're making. You're able to get a more complete and colorful picture with, obviously figuratively speaking, with, and literally too,
Yeah.
with students, as opposed to just a text answer back. You can't always, very rarely, interpret meaning through text, but with a video, and especially now that we were talking earlier with updates to the platform, now with the screen capture and the dual capture, students can essentially, if we're still doing math problems, with remote learning, I can pop open an interactive whiteboard or like a Jamboard, and I can do the problem. Even if I don't have a tablet, I can just use the cursor on a laptop or a PC, and I can essentially work a problem, show my solution path. I'm recording myself do the math problem, and then maybe my webcam, just so there's a connection between what I'm doing here and what's on the screen, and then send that to the teacher. And you're getting like really like fine-tuned, accurate data that transcends just here's my solution to my problem. Here's the answer to the math problem.
And even just the connection, your students are able to see you. It might not be live, but you're there explaining it to them, and they're not just reading it off the Google document. And when you guys put out the new platform for the morning meeting, I started to change my whole thing around, and I wasn't big on putting my face out there, but I had read that the kids want to see you, and that connection is so important. And then you guys, threw that up there, like, and not that you have to use the templates, but the templates spark the idea.
They do. And then a good starting point. Yeah. It's always, and it keeps you from having to remake the tracks. I know, like, I started with the morning meeting, and of course I wanted myself to be in the video as opposed to the person in the example, which is the case. We want to put, like, but it shows me, okay, this is where I can put my video. And so for someone who's just getting started, especially this time where it's so busy, it's nice to pop open a template and say, hey, I like the way it's set up. The only thing I need to change is me talking, and turning my webcam on. I'll record that, pop that in here. I like the prompts that are already built in, or I can tweak the prompts and ask them about something else besides the weather or how they're feeling. But and of course the activity is going to change from week to week. So it's, and you also mentioned too the ability for students to watch it on their own schedule, and that's why this asynchronous learning versus synchronous learning is such a big deal right now. And I'm really believing this power of like asynchronous, because it allows the students to engage at a time that works for them, and not all students are going to be available to hop on a Zoom. And additionally, I mean, there's a lot that can't happen in a Zoom meeting. Like, you have 25 different screens open. It's hard to get students to, and you shouldn't, it's not appropriate to ask students to reflect on something when there's 25 other students there. That's where the asynchronous comes in. And I think that teachers have to really be purposeful about the purpose of a live session versus something that's asynchronous that they can ask students to think about and ponder and reflect on.
And you, by putting the video out there, you might have, where if you don't put the video out there, 25 kids in the meet and maybe some of them don't need to be there, right? They can watch that video and then either, do an extension or take it to the next level. Or, I mean, in this case in time, there are, some teachers that are putting out work, and there's kids that, there's multiple things they have to do. So to let them, like you were saying, do it on their time. I'm even thinking, like Ron and I were talking, how can I make our classroom, when we do get back to, like you were saying, brick and mortar, how can we still use that idea? I mean, I have a student this year, and all through the year I'm banging my head, and what can I do to make this kid shine? Now he's shining. So now it's okay. So when I get another kid like that, because I'm going to have another kid like that, what can we do when we're back in there to allow this type of, I guess it's freedom, let this freedom happen within the times, like, hey, you have to go to lunch now, you have to go to specials now, you have to go home now. But other than that, there are large chunks of time. And the more I think about it, the more I say, you know what? I'll never know if 8-year-olds can do it unless you show them. And obviously, you can't just say do it. It's putting those things in place. But I'm excited for next year. Number one, just to go back and see the kids, but then to say, all right, well, now there's all these bank of videos that we were making every day during the pandemic that now we're going to, because they're just lessons that'll transition over to next year and build upon, I guess, that bank for the UDL. And then once you can get everything going, I mean, granted, yeah, it's utopia and probably the Garden of Eden for teaching, for any teacher to have kids come in the room and get work done when they want to do it, how they want to do it. I mean, that's utopia, but could it happen? Well, I don't know, but we'll try and try and fail and fix things. And
Yeah.
I
think, go ahead. No, go ahead,
No,
Ron.
go ahead. No,
I was
finish, because this was another point I was going to make. Go ahead.
Well, I could just point. I think that remote learning has changed the dynamics going forward. I don't think that we will. When I speak with educators about this subject, I ask them like, after this is done, what is your hope? And almost always the fill in the blank is, I hope we don't return to the way things were.
Right.
And I think that going forward, now that we know that this is possible, that students can learn without directly having an adult in a classroom of 25 kids, that yes, there's value in that, but we can use that the brick and mortar face-to-face time differently than we have before, because we know it's possible to be able to use the video creation, for example, because we're talking about WeVideo. What can we do with video creation now that we hadn't done before? Because now we know that we can activate prior knowledge with video. We can assess now with video. And so that means your in-person interactions can look a lot different than they have before.
Yeah, and one of the things I was going to say kind of goes into that is, we had a few episodes ago, we had on Ira Sokol, and we were discussing, literacy and how is video in today's world is literacy can be defined as listening to a book, watching a movie, physically reading the physical pages, but also, I wanted to get your thoughts on video as writing.
Yeah.
How you think about that.
It's interesting. No, I'm glad you asked. If you look at brain research, and a lot of literacy experts have looked at this, and we look at the receptive part of the brain. So what the input is, and you're listening for things, and then how your brain translates that. And so, for example, I'll say like audiobooks, like right now, the Audible has allowed students to download like children's books. And the brain research shows that you're actually creating the same neural pathways when you're listening to a book than you do when you're actually reading a book. And some literacy experts get a little bit upset when they hear that, but the brain research actually backs that up. Similar to, so make the connection to writing. I think writing is very, very important. I think that still must always be a part of the learning experience.
Right.
But to think about what are we going to use the writing portion for? Can we, you talked earlier about scripting out before you actually do a video. Concept mapping is a great way of using kind of writing, where you're organizing your thoughts or you're creating an outline. You can do it digitally, or you can do it, good old fashioned pen paper. And then like doing a reflection. So there's a way that you can, I think we should be journaling, and we should be thinking about the day and how we respond to the day. But I think you can also create a video. So there's lots of good like brain, like mind research that ties reading, writing, and in sequencing stories together. And that's essentially what we're doing with video creation, is we're creating a story, and we're able to take a picture that's in our mind, and we're expressing it in an external way.
And I think, we can also, when you talk about like persuasive writing,
Mm-hmm.
There's to me, one of the most persuasive things I see is that ASPCA commercial on at 2:00 in the morning with the sad music and the dogs.
It was on just a little bit ago. Like, yeah, we had to turn it. Like every time it comes, nope. I have a soft spot. I'm going to go and adopt every animal on that site. So no.
But I mean, you want to talk about persuasive writing,
Right.
That's persuasive writing. You want to talk about building empathy and getting kids to be empathetic. There's your vehicle to help, teach the empathy. Joe and I have just really last year got hooked on really working on the SDGs.
Yes.
And we had seen Jen Williams
I love Jen.
in
She's
Tabernacle.
Yeah.
She's awesome. She's going to be on with us next Friday.
Oh, yay.
Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, we video to help build connection with the SDGs and get the word out for kids, I think has been huge.
Yeah, I've worked with Jen on different projects, and SDGs is something we have thought through because it really goes back to that student ownership, that student leadership piece, and students have such a vision for the way they want to see the world today. They want their world to be clean, and they want their world to be a place where they're going to live a healthy lifestyle, and they have thoughts and opinions, and they want to be the change. And so I think it's a great example you made earlier with the SPCA commercial. The visuals that we can communicate can truly make an impact. And that's with video creation. It allows students impact to go beyond a small group in the classroom or to the classroom itself. Like I've seen students create these kind of Greta Thunberg type things where the impact is beyond just the local community. And I think it's an exciting time we're in. We're using technology tools to really empower our students to make a difference with their voice.
Well, I think kids can, I look back to when I was a kid. I mean, I'm 47, and when I was a kid, I wasn't in 6th, 7th, and 8th grade necessarily thinking about the environment, thinking about, social change and social justice. But I think a lot of our students are today. I don't know if it's to do with news is 24/7 now, but they are, and they want to be changers. And I think between, technology like video and the ability to teach how to use social media for a positive way, we are teaching a generation who do have the ability to be world changers, global change makers, and for us to be ready to foster that is so important.
Ron, when we were doing the koala PSAs, Nathan, we had kids that got really, when we were doing persuasive writing and focusing on the SDGs and what was it, 14, Ron, I think was land.
Life on land,
Life on land. With all the brush fires going on, the kids wanted to do something about it. So we started, writing persuasive speeches and doing the public service announcements. And Ron was running things in the morning. And I had a little girl put something together, and it was great. I mean, it was great in the sense that she had a koala, and in front of the koala, it was 3 different layers. So it was a koala in front of just a burning woods. Now it wasn't real, like she put it all together, and she goes, "Look at this. Tell me this isn't going to get their attention." And I went, I said, "Whoa, McKinley, like that's heavy." I said, "You know what? You'll get their attention with just that koala, because that koala is adorable." But she was thinking like, "Yo, what's the one thing I can do?" Because like you were saying before, without that video, you could say, "Hey, don't you care about the koalas in Australia?" And she might be an adorable little kid, but you know what? You see that koala and those big eyes, like that's the image, and that's what we video allows. But she was thinking, this koala is cute, but how can I take it to the next level? Because we were looking to get X amount of dollars in 2 weeks, and the kids crushed it. And when it came to a close, their question was, and Ron's heard me say this before, why do we have to stop? And that's the cool thing. It's like, well, you don't have to stop, but you now got to take it on your own, because the 4 teachers are besides all the curriculum, they're still trying to check off the list and making sure, this is getting done and that's getting done. We want to do those other projects more so than the curriculum, because we're, everyone knows that's where, learning happens in real life, and that was real learning. But man, does it take a lot out of you.
Yeah.
But the fact that they get that excited, and I think, Ron, right? I mean, it is Video. You give them that opportunity to show it, and you don't have to be the best artist. You don't have to be the best. You don't have to be an A student, but you can make your work look like it was put together by, a Hollywood movie producer, and it's pretty simple to do.
And that's, I think, the funny thing is, a lot of times at the end of these videos, you'll have kids say, and subscribe below.
Yep.
It's not going anywhere where anybody's subscribing, but that's what they know from YouTube.
Right. Well, and then there are times where like we are able to put those things on YouTube, like,
Right.
I love the fact that they're so in their element, because they are in this like YouTube culture where they
Sure.
know that someone's going to be listening to them, and their job is to think about, like, how am I influencing someone else's opinion? How am I kind of causing them to think about something? So I love it. I love the time we're in right now. It's a really exciting time to be able to, and kudos to you, Joe and Ron, for being able to take the curriculum and the scope. Is, I was a curriculum director, so I understand the value in looking at standards and thinking about, this is the bare minimum, thing for a student to know and be able to do. So how do I make this exciting? How do I connect it to their intrinsic motivational flows? How do I take this standard and I truly, I'm not going to cover standards. I don't like that phrase, but how do I kind of uncover it? How do I make it come to life? And so kudos to both of you for taking something that can be very mundane, very didactic, very boring, and making it something that's exciting, relevant, and connected to their world.
Well, the reason, though, and Ron will agree, that the reason we're able to do that is because our curriculum coordinator and our administrators, are on board. And I was observed doing a social studies lesson, and the lesson was a quick, this is a review of the concepts, go with Video. And I was, when people were saying why did you pick social studies? And I said, because it's boring and everyone knows it's boring. So what I want to say is, this is what we're doing in not that it's boring. I'm sorry. I shouldn't say that. But shout
out to all the social studies teachers.
I know, right?
and so maybe I should choose my words better, more wisely. I love history, but to give history from a book, that's boring. Just read this and take the quiz. That's not fun. To me, for me as a learner, that's not the way I would want to learn history. And
the content's exciting, but many times the context is not. And so we have to change that.
We were talking about the 3 branches of government. And the best thing, Nathan, in these videos, the best thing about it was the kids trying to say legislative, legislative, executive, and judicial. Those were the best part, because you know what? Like, they can't say it. They're tough concepts. Yeah. But you know what they can say? The president. And they start to know, the president's part of the executive branch, so that type of stuff starts happening. And teachers are like, why would you want them to come in and see that? Our program stinks. And I said, your program might stink, but our program doesn't stink. And our curriculum coordinator will say, like, the curriculum isn't the X on the map. It's just, it's things, there's stops you have to take along the treasure map. It's not the end all be all. And that's, I think, and Ron can back me up, that's very supportive, because when we first started doing this, I remember saying to my administrators, I do not want anyone coming into my classroom while I'm trying my first year at making in the classroom. Like, that's very daunting, as a 10-year veteran teacher, now to be trying something new, to have administrate remember, Ron, it was me, you, and Gary, but now it's like, what, come in. Like, it might be a hot mess. It might not be a hot mess. And if it's a hot mess, this is how it'll be different the next time we do it, because there is value in it. And that's exactly what, it's funny, because observations are important to me, because I want validation that what I'm doing is right. So, when she said, what can I come in and see? I said, let's do the social studies thing. This is what we're doing. I need to know, should I keep doing it? And I got a resounding hell yes, keep doing it. Keep with, to allow them to use Weave Video because they were all, 20 kids, they're 8 years old and their eyes are glued and, they're going back to a newspaper article. The newspaper article is also online. So they're trying to, listen to that again, which I'm a little upset they couldn't say legislative because they can listen to it over and over. But you know what? That's the least of my problems. The fact that during a social studies class, 20 kids were engaged in doing something,
Right.
that's so to me, can they say legislative? I don't know, but are they learning about things? Definitely. And once again, I think that's what counts.
Yeah.
Nathan, if you had one of from your book, I think it's 40 different projects, right?
Yeah.
Is there any one that, kind of stands out to you as like, this is a must try if you're doing Weave Video?
Um, Yeah, I always, at the very beginning, I start with kind of the a little bit like simpler start ones. Maybe it's turning a book report into a book talk or
Book trailer, one of
book
my
trailer. Yeah,
favorites. Yeah.
Yep.
I love that because you're getting away from, okay, this is the main idea. Again, Joe talking about like things that are boring. The content's not, but a lot of times the context and the process that we have put the content in can become boring because it doesn't connect to our own intrinsic motivation flows. But book trailers do because everyone in this, I would say most people love like the Netflix, Hulu, Amazon Prime. I mean, like we understand like now that we click on the thumbnail, it's automatically going to start playing a trailer. And so now when we're reading, we're able to communicate things that we liked about the book, things that we didn't like about the book. But you're the trailer, you're trying to get your friends or your teacher to pick up the book because it's exciting. And so you're taking the picture that you create in your mind of the book and you're putting it as a video. That's your output. So I love book trailers. I love being able to like do like a lab report, but instead of doing a lab report, you are presenting your conclusions through a video. So like a video kind of lab write up, but it's not the traditional way. I love the read alouds. This is more of a teacher created, and this is something we have done for the remote learning period. Well, and it's a template forever now, but we noticed that students still need to hear and see their teacher reading. And what I love with the read aloud template is it allows you can see me like reading the book, but then you can do a screen capture of like pictures you've taken of the book. And so like I did one like The Wizard of Oz, which is a 1900 book by Frank Baum, and it's in the public domain. So I didn't even have to get a permission from a publisher because it's in the public domain already. So I took pictures of like the artwork that was a part of the book, and then I would just narrate over it, or I had the book that I was reading. And so your kids are able to see the pictures of the book. They can see you reading it. But I would say, just get into the platform and just start with a template if you're just getting started, because there are lots of inspirational ideas. Stop motion is a fun one because it harkens back to the claymation the movies that you watched.
Gumby.
Gumby. That's the one.
Gumby, yeah.
That's the one I always think of when I think of the claymation. Or the Christmas one. Not Santa Claus Came to Town, but
Rudolph, right? Rudolph the
Rudolph.
Red-Nosed Reindeer.
Stop motion.
Stop motion. Yeah. So it's a lot of fun just to get into the platform. And now my advice for any teacher just getting started is to click on a template, just to see kind of the different ways that the tracks are already laid in for you. And then you can go and change pictures and put in your own personal touch to make it your video.
I guess I want to throw, kind of going back, I want to throw one project that I have liked. And, one that I think is underrated is for social studies. I was an archaeologist coming out of college, so I worked as an archaeologist for about 4 years. So I'm a history nerd, but is putting yourself as a reporter at a time in history. Like if you're if you're a reporter reporting on the Boston Tea Party as it's happening and putting in all those noises and things like that into WeVideo, whether it's just audio or whether it's in front of a green screen, you have to know what you're talking about in order to report on it. And that's a really a fun activity as well.
You have to like figure out like what if the British find out about me covering this,
Right.
happen, so you have to take on these you have to truly imagine yourself what was happening back then, what was going to be a stumbling block for me to report on something like this.
Yeah.
Well, and we can get cross curricular, and I think that's called point of view, right? So
Right.
if we have to talk about point of view and reading, this is what I think is great, is that all this stuff can all come together and say, oh well, I teach math, I can't use that. Yes, you can. I teach anything you this can be brought into the classroom and not as just something with bells and whistles, but something that could really improve a student's teaching and their and kids learning. Did I say that right? Teachers teaching and students learning. There we go.
Yes.
Awesome. Nathan, we don't want to hold you here all day, but we definitely want to thank you for joining us. I mean, it's been a lot of fun. I'm excited about the GIF thing. I think that'll be pretty amazing.
I can definitely chat with both of you for a while, and it's a Friday afternoon here, and it's been a lot of fun. I'm so glad that we finally have been able to do this, and I've been connected on Twitter and seeing the great work you've done, and it's always fun to connect with like dynamic, positive, energetic, fun educators who are really have a passion for making learning fun. So it's been an honor to be able to be on your show.
If people want to reach out to you, what's best way for them to get in touch with you?
Yeah, you can find me on Twitter. My handle is Dr. Lang-Raad, spelled with 2 A's, or drlangrad.com. Also, WeVideo, you can find a lot more about our resources, especially during the COVID time. Just WeVideo.com, click on education, and there's a whole remote learning landing page. And then, of course, on Twitter, @WeVideo. And I hope that I'm able to connect with the listeners who are listening to this right now.
And I know you have a podcast too. Can you throw that out there?
Yeah, of course. Deeper Learning with WeVideo.
Yeah.
And I'll have to have you guys on there next. So
hey, that'd be great.
Awesome.
See how that works.
Yeah.
And you can find that on Spotify, on podcasts, on the Apple Podcast, or just go to SoundCloud or go to the WeVideo.com. It's on the remote learning page. Just click on podcasts and you'll be able to find it there.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much. Joe, you have any last parting words?
No, Nathan, this was great. And once again, I appreciate all the help and everything that anytime someone asks something, you guys are right there. And it's, whether it's me or anyone else I see out there, like it just, Ron and I talk about companies that get it. And I know it's your company definitely gets it, and you definitely get it too, man. Like we're really, we appreciate that. And, you talk about educators being passionate. I think you could be, grouped right into that or lumped right into that group. So we appreciate you and what you do.
Thank you. Yeah. I mean, I'm right there with you. I miss sometimes being in, it wasn't that long ago. I was in the classroom or as a principal, like I remember those days, and I and my team at WeVideo just really want to be there for you. We're always listening. So keep sending us your ideas, and we'll keep updating and being there for you and helping your kids be their most creative selves.
All right. Thank you very much. Appreciate it. It's good to see you. Have a great weekend.
Thanks. You too. Thanks, Joe. Thanks, Ron.
All right.
Thank you, Nathan.
Bye-bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.